Let's start with a truth bomb. We all want things to go a certain way. We want the promotion, the recognition, the success. We want the answer yes. And when it doesn't happen, it certainly stings. But here's the catch. The more attached you are to how things turn out, the more power you give to things that you can't control. When you start measuring your worth by outcomes, you start losing control of your peace. I'm your host, Isaac, and today on the Standards of Excellence podcast, we're talking about a principle that separates mastery from misery, detaching from outcomes. Because excellence isn't just about doing the right thing, it's about being okay no matter what happens after. Most people live chained to the results. Their emotions rise and fall based on external validation, like the number of likes, the sales figures, the performance review. When things go well, they're confident. When things don't, they collapse. They're trapped in emotional turbulence because they've confused control with influence. You can influence the outcome through preparation, effort, and discipline, but you can't control it. Attachment creates suffering because it ties your identity to something that you don't own. And once your self-worth depends on results, you're surrendering your peace to circumstance. That's why detachment isn't giving up, it's taking back control of your emotional stability. There's an old story from Zen philosophy, the story of the archer. A young archer wanted to prove himself to be the best in the land. He trained for years, developing perfect form and incredible accuracy. One day, he challenged an old master to a contest. At first, the young archer shot perfectly. Every arrow struck the target dead center. He turned to the old master, proud and waiting for praise. The master smiled and said, "Impressive, but now let's go to the mountain." They climbed to a narrow bridge suspended over a deep canyon. The wind was strong. The drop below was endless. The young archer trembled as he took his stance. His hands shook. His focus broke. The arrow missed completely. The master then took his turn, steady, calm, and effortless, and hit the target perfectly. The student asked, "How can you shoot like that under these conditions?" The master replied, "When you only care about the target, you're blind to everything else. When you learn to let go of the outcome, the arrow flies true." The lesson here is that excellence doesn't come from obsession, it comes from presence. Psychologically speaking, detachment is about separating your effort from your ego. The ego always wants to win. It craves that control. It measures success by trophies and recognition and comparison. But mastery measures success by commitment to the process. When you detach from the outcomes, you free yourself from fear. You stop asking, "Will this work?" And you start saying, "I'm going to give my best regardless." That shift creates peace because you no longer need the world to validate your worth. It's not about lowering your standards, it's about raising your level of self-trust. You still pursue excellence relentlessly. You just stop needing the reward to justify the effort. That's the real meaning of detachment, doing everything you can and releasing everything you can't. Letting go doesn't mean apathy, it means clarity. When you stop fixating on outcomes, your focus sharpens. When you start seeing the work for what it is, not what it could get you, you become fully present in your craft. Think about it. Athletes perform best when they're in the zone. Writers produce their best work when they stop worrying about who's going to be reading it. Leaders make the best decisions when they stop trying to please everyone. In that state, you move from pressure to presence, from expectation to execution. When you detach yourself, you stop gripping the steering wheel so tightly that you cause a crash. You trust the process, you trust your preparation, most importantly, you trust yourself. That is when flow happens, and excellence feels effortless. Detachment isn't one skill, it's a layered discipline. Let's break it down. Detachment from the timeline. You can't schedule growth. Progress unfolds in its own season. Stop demanding instant results. Focus on showing up. The longer you stay consistent, the more inevitable the outcome becomes. Detach from comparison. Your journey is not theirs. When you compare, you lose perspective. You start measuring yourself by someone else's story. Excellence isn't about being better than them. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. Detach yourself from validation. The loudest applause often comes when you stop performing for it. You can't build peace if your worth depends on approval. Detachment means you stay steady whether they cheer or are silent. Each layer frees you from this dependency until your motivation becomes pure once again. You're no longer chasing outcomes, you are embodying excellence for its own sake. So how do you begin to detach in a world obsessed with results? You practice patience. When you're working, work. When you're resting, rest. When you're striving, focus on the next step, not the finish line. Presence is detachment in action. It's where excellence actually lives, in the single moment you're in control of. You don't need to eliminate all of your desires, you just need to anchor it in the process. Because when you stop clinging to outcomes, you gain the freedom to create without fear. And ironically, that's when the results start showing up on their own. Detachment isn't coldness, it's emotional intelligence at the highest level. It's the peace that comes from knowing you can't lose what isn't meant for you, and you can't miss what's aligned with your effort. When you do your work, give your best, and release the rest, you stop living in this world of anxiety, and you start living in the flow. That's when you realize letting go doesn't weaken you. It makes you absolutely unshakable. Because you've learned the difference between control and commitment. One drains you, the other defines you. Detachment isn't giving up, it's growing up. It's the maturity of knowing that your worth lives in your effort, not the outcome. So today, practice peace in the process. Because when you master detachment, excellence stops being a chase and it starts being who you are. Thank you for listening to the Standards of Excellence podcast. If today's message resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that peace and progress can and do coexist. Until next time, pursue excellence, separate yourself from your outcomes, and make today matter.